have been an uncanny turn of events in Russia as the Russian private army group chief headed by Prigozhin has now locked the very Kremlin in their crosshairs. Russian President Vladimir Putin has now taken off from Moscow and then disappeared from flight radars after announcing on television, the latest of course coming in, that the Wagner chief has finally retreated from Moscow and other districts, other cities of Russia. Meanwhile, the criminal investigation against the Wagner chief has also been withdrawn by the Russian officials.
Putin facing mutiny, facing a coup attempt. What's the Wagner Group? Now, Wagner Group is a private military company identified in 2014. He was a very close aide of Putin. Let's tell you more about the Wagner Group. The Wagner Group, whose chief is marching to Moscow. That's him there. He's marching to Moscow and is a few hundred kilometers away from Moscow right now. Backed pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine, was on the front lines, sent by Putin, operated mostly in Africa and the Middle East, has and can be hired for a price by different countries. Now commands 50,000 fighters in Ukraine. Many experts believe that that number could be way below 50,000, could be a little over 30,000 is what experts believe. And those number of fighters perhaps are marching towards Moscow. 80% of troops in Ukraine drawn from prison. So when you had a riot inside a prison in Moscow, you know what could be going wrong. Now, this is a little bit about the Wagner Group. Now, he's Putin's ex-aide. He's Putin's ex-aide and he's in charge of the private army of mercenaries. That's him there. He's been a chef, opened many hotels and got into the business of private armies. He hails from Putin's hometown of St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg is also where one presidential plane took off too. Many believe one of Putin's homes is there and that's where that mystery plane may have landed. He also opened a chain of restaurants in the 1990s. This is a little bit more about him. He was contracted to cater food to the Kremlin. That's how his career started, a very interesting career. And he earned the nickname as Putin's chef. That's how close he was to the Russian president. And Prigozhin's firms earned several government contracts. So he worked for the Russian army, the Russian military, and he's been doing that for several decades now. Now, let's tell you where he operated, some of the areas, the countries where he was hired. His army was hired in the Central African Republic, where the mercenary army operated in Mali, operated in Libya, operated in Syria, operated in Crimea, and operated most recently in Bakhmut, Ukraine, where they liberated Bakhmut for Russia's army. Let's also tell you that Wagner Group has revolted because Prigozhin accuses the defense minister of Russia and the army chief of Russia of incompetence. He says they're incompetent and that's why Russia has not been able to make big gains. He claimed that the Wagner groups were not, group mercenaries were not given enough equipment, enough weapons from Russia. He's been speaking out openly. He also claimed that the army in Russia fired a missile at the Wagner camp, and that seems to be the latest flashpoint.